Right now, it is the season to be jolly if you're an owner of illustration rare cards, because unless you've been living under a rock, you'll know that quite a few illustration rares are absolutely flying right now. Yes, guys, I know, pardon the pun, it was a pretty poor dad joke. I apologize if you did not enjoy it. But anyway, today we're here to talk about illustration rares because I feel that I have found some that still are kind of sleeping right now and have the potential to fly, just like, for example, that Drowzee has from Scarlet and Violet Base. And for those of you that have no idea what I'm referring to, I'm talking about, of course, this illustration rare Drowzee card from Scarlet and Violet Base that over the last few days has risen from a price of around $10 to $15 all the way up to almost $80. In fact, the other day when I touched on it in a different video, it was just over $80, has just dropped a tiny bit, but still has risen astronomically. As you can see from the percentage there, 464%. And just to give you another example of what I'm talking about, this Metagross card from Temporal Forces, which I absolutely adore. I did include it, in fact, in a video of mine where I talked about 10 cards under the price of a certain amount. And I did include this Metagross when it was sitting at the low price of around $10 or $11, has now shot up all the way to almost $40. As you can see, a rise of 210% in the last couple months. Therefore, this is what I'm talking about. As you can see, the type of chart, right? Rise, 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 and boom, gone. This is the type of cards we'll be covering today. Just to give you one last example, guys, as you can see here, the Altaria EX from Paradox Rift. Beautiful, beautiful card. I really love it, and one I actually added to my collection very recently, thankfully before the boom. But as you can see again from the shape of that chart, the way it curves, right? Pretty cool, $29, $30-ish, low $30 for a while, pretty straightish line, and then bang, gone. Right, all the way up to almost $70. It just booms. So this is exactly what I want to cover today. I found a few cards where, whether it be because of their artwork, because of the set they're from, or because it's a very desirable Pokemon, or maybe all of the above, they're for some reason still at a reasonable price, and in my opinion have the potential to just fly, just like that, just like those examples we looked at. So let's get straight in and have a look at those cards. Straight off the bat, Surging Sparks, Latios, the illustration rare, guys. $37 for this card, and if you look at the graph, it just doesn't know what price it wants to be, right? It rises a bit, it drops off quite a lot, rises again, it settles, it's doing a bit of everything, right? $37 for a Dragon Psychic type Pokemon from Gen 3. A Pokemon as cool as this Latios, only $37? This is a $100 card in my opinion. At least it will be at some point in the future, and therefore that's exactly why I think it has the potential to really fly once people pick up on how nice a card this is. Now, as you can see, this is the card it kind of joins in a joint artwork. I call them story cards. I've been through that before if you've seen that video. But this Latias EX, although I love the card and I love Latias as a Pokemon, I genuinely believe that this Latios card here is just a cooler artwork than the Latias. I get it, they're very similar cards, they join together, there's not much difference. With Latias being this kind of close up and the way it's smiling, I'm not hating on it, I do love the Pokemon, I love the card, just looks a bit goofy-ish in my opinion, okay? The way this Latios here is kind of looking into the distance, is a bit further away, it's got a mean concentrated look on its face. Guys, I know I'm getting very, very into the artwork now, I'm being quite judgmental, but still, just giving my opinion, I think this Latios is slightly better artwork. And as you can see, of course, yes, I get the prices aren't very comparable, we're talking about an SIR here in this Latias card, sitting at $250, but if you want the piece, the other card that joins it in that same story card artwork, this Latios card here, only $37, and I think it's only a matter of time before it absolutely flies. Just a quick message of thank you to all of you for helping me surpass 500 subscribers. Guys, that feels so surreal to say, and to those of you that are new here and have subscribed in the last few days, welcome to the channel. Thank you for joining. I hope you've enjoyed the content you've seen thus far, and I hope you continue to enjoy the content that I put out. For those of you that haven't subscribed yet and you are new, and you like the sound of a new Pokemon TCG video every other day, please feel free to hit that subscribe button, as I would love to have you here. And guys, if you are enjoying the video, please feel free to leave a like, as it really does help me out. Moving on to our second card, one of my favorite cards from a very strong set in Paldea Evolved, we have Heracross. Now, this is the happiest you're going to see this little guy. If you've watched the anime, you know, he's actually one of Ash's Pokemon too, which again adds a level of desirability to it. People have an attachment to the show. They want to collect the same Pokemon that Ash has, or whoever the protagonist is. Therefore, again, you've got to consider that when it comes to the price. Heracross here with a beautiful card, right? As you can see the colors, the blues, the greens. I absolutely adore it. It's a brilliant card. And as we can look at the price, it still sits under $20. And yes, it has risen a little bit over the last couple of months, but not much. As you can see, lowest at $14 three months ago, back in November. It's only risen about $5 up to $19, $20. But again, with Heracross being Generation 2, really cool bug fighting type Pokemon from Paldea Evolved, a very strong set. I really do think this Pokemon has the potential to fly. I really think we could be looking at a card that's $45, $50, especially in this market we're in with illustration rares absolutely flying. Heracross has a decent level of desirability to it. It's a loved Pokemon. It's a beautiful card. Again, I think it really does have the potential. If we come back in a month or two, we could see that graph go like this. Moving on to our third card, we have another one from Paldea Evolved. This time it's Tyranitar. Now, the fact there's 2 cards in this shortlist featured from Paldea Evolved just shows how strong of a set that one is. Tyranitar, of course, being a fan favorite from Generation 2. So yet again, going back to the older generations, as they add a good level of desirability to us old heads that were back in the day, played the 1st gen, 2nd gen, 3rd gen. We love our older generation Pokemon. So Tyranitar, of course, being a fan favorite from the games, just an absolutely beastly Pokemon, right? And it's very similar to this card right here. Very similar to this Groudon from Paradox Rift, which, as we can see, is $100. And this Tyranitar here, only $47. It's less than half the price of the Groudon. If you flick between them, you can quite easily see the similarities in the cards. You can see the kind of the angle that the kind of artwork is taken at, the background as well. They're both in their elements would be, I think, the best thing to say, right? Groudon with the mountains and volcanoes in the background erupting. Tyranitar similarly, you can see in the background, the mountains in the background. They're both, and obviously the kind of darkness of the sky in the background as well. They're very similar cards, similar artwork, and I love both of them. They're both fantastic cards, right? So in my opinion, if Groudon, which I think deserves the price of over $100, is going for that price, they're both illustration rares. Therefore, we're not comparing 2 different levels of rarity in terms of cards here. We're looking at 2 illustration rares. Tyranitar from a stronger set, arguably, in Paldea Evolved versus Paradox Rift. I think we're looking at a very strong Tyranitar card that is still underpriced. As you can see from the graph, in the last month or so, yeah, it's risen about $10, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot. I think we're looking at a Tyranitar card here that has easily the potential to be $100+ card. Moving on to our 4th card, and guys, look at this Gloom card. You're really going to find it hard to get another card that's as beautiful as this. You could pretty much complete the rainbow with the colors in that card. If you look, there's blues, greens, yellow, oranges, reds, pinks, purples, browns. There's a bit of everything in there. It's beautiful. It's fantastic, right? And yes, yet again, we're going back to the earlier generations. Of course, Gloom being from Generation 1. And no, guys, that's not a coincidence because this influences the price. Earlier generation Pokemon have a level of desirability to them, especially to people like me or people in that same boat as me where we played the games back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Therefore, we have a certain connection to those older Pokemon, which influences the price, right? Anyway, Gloom coming from an Obsidian Flames set, which is waking up a little bit. People are giving it its flowers and realizing it's actually a stronger set than people realized initially. Of course, it has that Houndour, that Ninetales, it has this Gloom, it has that Caesar. It's got some really, really nice Pokemon. So if we look at the way it's performing lately, as you can see, only $14 right now. And yes, it has doubled in price over the last couple months, was only around $7. But guys, we're looking at a card here. As I've mentioned all the different reasons, right? We're in a period of time where artwork really matters. It really influences the price, which is why this Drowzee card flown, right? I touched on this in my last video, if you want to see that, on why this Drowzee card is so special based on this artist here, Tomokazu Komuya. Guys, you can watch that video. It's my last one I made. But the point being, artwork is very important right now as in influencing heavily the prices of cards. Therefore, with this Gloom being so beautiful, I wouldn't be surprised if we see this fly in the next month or two and surge past 30 for even $50 US. And moving on to our final card, guys, we have Yveltal. Now, this card in this Pokemon is special. Paradox Rift. I'm a huge advocate for Paradox Rift. I think it's a very underrated set. And it's starting to get its flowers, of course, headlined by that Groudon card we looked at earlier. But Yveltal, if you didn't know, is actually the kind of mascot Pokemon for Pokemon Y. In the X and Y era, you have Yveltal for the Y side of the games. As you can see, it's kind of a Y-shaped Pokemon. It's a fantastic looking Pokemon. It's so cool, right? Although it's not necessarily the nicest Pokemon because If you didn't know a little bit of information, Yveltal comes from the Middle English word which means evil. Therefore, not the nicest Pokemon, but still, what we care about is how cool it looks, right? So anyway, this obviously, if you look at the card, the colors, the style of it, beautiful, beautiful card, right? And of course, it's a legendary Pokemon, dark type, has a lot going for it, right? It really does. It's a fantastic Pokemon. Now, if you look at the way it's performing recently, only $26, and it is slowly creeping up. It has doubled in value over the last couple months, which is good, but I still think a mascot Pokemon for an entire kind of generation of games, legendary Pokemon, dark type, very cool looking card, decently strong set, has a lot going for it. It really does. Therefore, $26 for a legendary Pokemon as cool as Yveltal, I think we're looking at a card that could easily be $50, $75 in the near future. Therefore, I think, again, this is why it has a place on my list. I think it's very undervalued, and I think it will get its flowers someday soon. Now, we've looked at 5 Pokemon which in my opinion are extremely undervalued, especially in this market where illustration rares are absolutely popping off right now. And I think these easily, for their various own reasons, have the potential to fly, just like some of the illustration rares have been. Of course, we've looked at each one. We've looked at why I think they could fly. We've compared them to other cards that have flown already. Therefore, it'll be interesting to see how they perform, and potentially we can look at this video and go back in a couple months and see just how they're doing. But anyway, guys, I'm interested to know what you think about these cards as well as my opinion on them. If you think they'll fly or not, let me know in the comments down below just what you guys think. So that does conclude today's video, guys, and it has been a massive pleasure to be able to have a look at some of the cooler cards we have available to us and discuss them with you. And guys, if you are still watching, I really do appreciate your support. You're an absolute legend. Thank you very much for that. Don't forget to leave a like if you have enjoyed the video. And guys, if you haven't caught up on my last video where I discussed promo cards, why they're so attractive and how they're performing recently, you can check that out right here. Apart from that, as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I've been Pokecharla, and I'll catch you in the next one.